Hello, this is Michele Bond, and welcome to the explanation about fallacy number 2, which is the true core. So what we're going to talk about here is a little bit about the research that was done, as well as the foundational exercise that you can perform to make sure that the inner unit is firing properly. So in the research, it was more about the timing of these inner unit, okay, which was the diaphragm muscle sitting here for breathing, the pelvic floor, the transverse abdominis that runs around the abdominal area to the back, connected by some fascia, connective tissue, and a small muscle group in the low back, the multifidus, which is a spinal stabilizer. So in the actual research, shoulder flexion was performed, okay? And with the people with non-specified low back pain, this inner unit didn't fire before the arm movement occurred, okay? So this research was more about the timing and not a bunch of exercises that said, get your abs looking sexy or strong. Now, there are some companies and entities out there that do talk about the actual inner unit, but it's not enough to really hit the mainstream population that we need to be doing. So what I want to show you is one exercise, and before we do that, I want to talk about breathing. So we're going to do it as though you were taking a breath in and out through the mouth as if you were talking or singing or even playing an instrument. So it's a conditioning thing. It's what you did when you were very first born. That's why breathing is an actual inner unit exercise, because it's the first thing you did when you got to this earth was take a breath. So when you inhale, you're expanding the belly out gently and the rib cage out slightly and even back a little bit. So as you're doing this, you're filling the cavity with air, and as you exhale through the mouth. You can do it sitting, standing, lying on your back is probably a little bit easier, however. That has to be in order, that this part of the body is expanding and contracting slightly, and there's no movement in the chest until the very last part of the breath. So if you are raising the chest too much during the first part of the breath, that's not inner unit activation. So that needs to be mastered. But the number one core exercise or inner unit activation exercise I use with anybody coming through my door is exactly the same. And it is called the single leg lowering. And you're going to be on your back. You're going to see in the video here, you'll be on your back. This is the most stable environment to work the inner unit. You can do other things that are kneeling, standing, and in motion, but for right now, you're going to be on your back. Now remember, the curve in the upper back and lower back are going to be similar. So when you're on your back, don't try to tip your pelvis under and flatten your low back like a pancake. You want to keep a slight curve. You're going to bring your knees over your hips, and as you'll see in the video, you can adjust the angle of the knee. If your leg is more straight at the knee, it's more challenging. If the knee is more bent, it's less challenging. So the objective is to keep the knees over the hips and lower one heel down at a time and back up to starting, and the other heel down and back up to starting. As you progress, you gradually change the angle at the knee so your leg is longer and longer. So those are the progressions. Once your leg is beyond 90 degrees, then you can try to lower and lift both legs at the same time. So here's a double leg lower. So what you'll do is you'll lower both heels down and back up, down and back up. Now, it truly is a hip flexor exercise because you're moving at the hip, but the stability is coming through the spine, which makes it a really great inner unit conditioning exercise. So to get steady with this and updates with things that are going to be happening, I invite you to go to michelebond.com and subscribe. There's going to be other opportunities to learn progressions for this exercise, as well as some exercises for the outer unit. So the outer unit I mentioned in the book is basically muscles firing up in a coordinated fashion to produce movement. So that could be muscles that fire up from the lower body through the trunk to the upper body to produce movement. Could be a baseball throw, a soccer kick, lifting a heavy box to an upper compartment or shelf. You have to have these muscles in a coordinated fashion, okay? But if the inner unit is not conditioned properly, this outer unit won't function optimally. So again, please go to my website, michelebond.com, and subscribe. There's a nice button there on the front page. I'm not going to email you every single day, just once in a while for some updates, some suggestions. It's also a way to communicate with me. This exercise I'm giving you might seem like no big deal, but I'm telling you, it has changed many of my clients' life because you're slowing down, you're in an environment where you're very stable, and you're focused on understanding how this front abdominal, transverse abdominis is supposed to fire, along with the diaphragm, the multifidus, and the pelvic floor. And I'm really excited for you to get started with this exercise, and I will see you in the next video.